Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I'm glad you found our channel. So today, we will be discussing a topic that's been all over the news lately, the real reasons why more Americans are leaving the US, especially with everything happening. Now, I know the title might sound a little dramatic, but trust me, some of the reasons behind this, what I call a mass exodus, are somewhat deep, layered, and a little controversial. But we have to talk about it, so please hear me out. It's not just about people wanting a change of scenery or a vacation abroad. No, this is a growing trend that's happening for real, and I'm about to unpack some of the most surprising, somewhat unpopular opinions, but the very real reasons why Americans are saying goodbye to the US. Now, before we get into them, first, I want to remind us that no country is perfect, and every country has its challenges, the good and the bad. Mind you, I want to restate that I'm not saying the US is all bad, but I think it's important to understand the full picture of why people are choosing to leave a country that has long been seen as the land of opportunity. So with that, let's get into the video fully. Number 1. Political polarization. Let's start with the elephant in the room, political polarization. Under the leadership of President Trump, we saw an intensification of political division. And this isn't just about a difference in opinion, it's about people feeling like there's no middle ground anymore. Now you might say, well, it's always been politically divided. True, but the sense of us versus them has gotten louder. Many Americans have left, or are considering leaving, because they just don't want to live in a society where the political climate feels so toxic. It's not just the debates on TV, it's the anger on social media, the division at family gatherings, the constant bickering. People are fed up with the constant state of battle and are looking for peace elsewhere where they can have more productive, less combative conversations. I mean, who doesn't want a place where you can actually have a normal conversation without it turning into a political argument, right? Number 2, excessive gun violence. Next up, we have something that's been a huge concern for Americans for years, gun violence. The gun laws in the US are something that continues to baffle a lot of people. Under Trump, the debate surrounding gun control became even more polarized, with the lack of significant change causing frustration. We've all seen the news. Shootings in schools, workplaces, and even churches have become all too common. For many people, especially those with families, leaving the US for a country with stricter gun laws and less violence just makes sense. Countries like Japan, Australia, and Canada are often seen as safer options, with gun violence being a rare occurrence. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who stand firm in their belief that the Second Amendment should not be touched. But for others, the stress of living in a society where gun violence is so rampant has led them to pack up and start fresh in places that feel more secure, and honestly, who can blame them? Number 3, the healthcare crisis. Moving on to another major reason why people are leaving America, healthcare. The United States spends more on healthcare than any other country, but we're still dealing with the same old issues. High premiums, high deductibles, and prescription drug that costs through the roof. Under Trump, the attempt to repeal the Affordable Care Act and the ongoing battle over healthcare policies only made things worse. Let's be real here. There are people in the US who are literally going bankrupt because of medical bills. That's not something you should have to face in a country that claims to be a world leader. So, where do you go if you're sick and tired of dealing with broken healthcare? You leave. You go to countries like Canada, the UK, or France, where healthcare is affordable and, in many cases, free. It's not just about getting medical treatment, it's about peace of mind. Knowing that you won't have to worry about whether you can afford your doctor's visit or your prescription refill is something that a lot of Americans dream of. And more are making that dream a reality by moving abroad. Number 4, declining international reputation. Okay, let's talk about something that might not be as obvious. The US's declining international reputation. Under Trump, we saw the US pull out of key international agreements, things like the Paris Climate Agreement and the Iran nuclear deal. Add in the trade wars and the overall shift towards a more isolationist stance, and you can see why some Americans are starting to feel embarrassed about their country's global image. It's tough to be proud of a nation when it's constantly at odds with the rest of the world. Some Americans are leaving because they feel disconnected from the direction their country is going, and they're seeking out countries with more progressive, cooperative foreign policies. The truth is, A lot of people don't want to feel like they're on an island. They want to belong to a community that's working together toward a brighter future. Number 5. Taxation and economic policy. Now let's talk about money, specifically taxes and economic policies. Under Trump, there were significant tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations, which didn't really trickle down to the average American. In fact, many middle-class families felt the squeeze, especially when it came to rising living costs and stagnant wages. For a lot of Americans, this has led to a sense of economic hopelessness. So, what do? They leave. They go to countries where the tax structure is more balanced, where social services are stronger, and where it's easier to make ends meet. For instance, countries like Portugal and Spain offer favorable tax policies for expats, and the cost of living is lower than in the US. It's not just about taxes. It's about the feeling of being stuck in a system that seems rigged against you. And for some, moving abroad is the only way to escape that. Number 6. Environmental neglect. Now, environmental issues are huge for a lot of people, and under Trump, there was a lot of pushback against environmental protection policies. Climate change deniers were given a platform, and regulations meant to protect our planet were rolled back or eliminated. For many Americans who are passionate about the environment, it's hard to ignore the fact that their country is not taking the necessary steps to tackle climate change. So, what do? They leave. They move to countries like Denmark, Sweden, or New Zealand, where environmental sustainability is a top priority. These countries are investing in green energy, reducing emissions, and taking climate action seriously. Americans who care about the future of the planet are finding places where they feel like their values align with the government's policies.
Well, the truth is, I'm not really sure what happened.
Number 7. Immigration policies. Immigration is another big factor. Under Trump, we saw the enforcement of stricter immigration policies, including the infamous zero-tolerance policy that separated families at the border. For many Americans, this kind of cruelty is unacceptable. Some feel that the country they once loved has become unrecognizable, and they can no longer stand by policies that they see as inhumane. If you're someone who values inclusivity, diversity, and compassion, it's hard to stomach the idea of living in a country that treats immigrants this way. That's why some people are leaving the US for countries that are more welcoming, like Canada and several European nations, where immigrants are treated with dignity and respect. Number 8. Social justice concerns. On a similar note, social justice concerns are driving many Americans to leave the US. The fight for racial equality, LGBTQ+ rights, and women's rights has felt like an uphill battle, especially under Trump, who often undermined efforts to address systemic inequalities. Many Americans, especially those from marginalized groups, feel that the US is not a place where they can truly thrive. For these individuals, moving abroad to countries that offer better social protections, stronger legal rights, and a more inclusive culture is a way to escape an environment that feels hostile to their identities. Countries like Canada, the UK, and the Netherlands are seen as places where these rights are better respected. Number 9. Desire for a simpler life. Here's something that might surprise you. Many Americans are leaving the US simply because they want a simpler life. The hustle and bustle of big cities, the constant pressure to work harder and make more money, and the overall pace of life can be overwhelming. Under Trump, it felt like this rat race was accelerating and people were tired of it. So they're packing up and heading to places like Portugal or Costa Rica, where life is slower, stress is lower, and the cost of living is more manageable. It's not just about escaping the chaos. It's about finding peace, balance, and happiness in a more relaxed environment. It's a lifestyle choice, and for many, it's the best decision they've made. Number 10. Cultural disconnect. And then there's the issue of cultural disconnect. For some Americans, the direction the country is heading in feels foreign. The rise of nationalism, the increasing tribalism, the rejection of multiculturalism. Many people just don't feel like they belong anymore. They're looking for a place where they can feel like part of a cohesive, inclusive community. And for some, that means leaving the US. Countries like Canada, Sweden, and New Zealand offer a culture that is more open, welcoming, and focused on social good. For many, It's not about escaping America, it's about finding a place where they feel truly at home. Number 11. Fear of declining future opportunities. Another reason why many Americans are leaving the US is because most people are afraid of what the future holds right in the country. With the uncertainty of Trump's policies, economic instability, and growing global tensions, some people are concerned about their children's futures. The American dream seems to be slipping further out of reach, and they're not willing to wait around to see if things get better. Instead, they're looking to countries that offer more stability, better job opportunities, and more security for future generations. It's not about giving up. It's about securing a better future for themselves and their loved ones. Number 12. Escaping a divisive national identity. Let's talk about something that's been on a lot of people's minds lately, the idea of a divisive national identity. For many Americans, it feels like the country is losing its sense of unity. The ideal of the melting pot has been replaced by a more fractured society, where different groups are constantly pitted against each other. It's no longer about celebrating differences. It's about pointing out how we're different. Under Trump, this division has only deepened. The rhetoric from his administration, combined with rising nationalism and a backlash against multiculturalism, has made some Americans feel like they no longer belong in the country they once considered a beacon of freedom and opportunity. The sense of unity that many grew up with is slipping away, replaced by a feeling of exclusion. For some people, the solution is to leave. They're searching for a place where the national identity isn't so torn apart. They want to live in countries that feel more cohesive, where diversity is not just tolerated but celebrated. Countries like Canada, New Zealand, and the Netherlands have become popular destinations because of their inclusive cultures, strong social safety nets, and a focus on community over division. These are places where people feel like they can be part of something greater than themselves, without the constant clash of ideologies. It's not about abandoning America, but for some, it's about finding a society where they can truly thrive, without feeling like they're constantly fighting to be heard. And in a world that feels more divided than ever, I can understand why people might want to find that peace elsewhere. (14) Educational opportunities. Finally, let's talk about education. Specifically, the cuts to education funding under Trump's administration, and the policies that some believe are damaging to the future of American children. Education is the foundation of opportunity, and when the system starts to crumble, it's no surprise that people start looking for alternatives. During Trump's time in office, we saw a number of policies that many consider harmful to the educational system. There were cuts to public school funding, a tax on programs designed to help disadvantaged students, and a push for privatization of schools through charter programs. For many parents, this meant that the education system they relied on to give their kids a chance at success was deteriorating right before their eyes. For some Americans, this has led to a very real fear about the future. How can they send their kids to a school where resources are being slashed, teachers are underpaid, and the curriculum is being constantly adjusted based on political agendas? Many have come to the conclusion that leaving the US for a country with a more well-funded, progressive, and inclusive educational system might be the only way to ensure that their children get the opportunities they deserve. Countries like Finland, Canada, and South Korea have become attractive options for parents who want a better education for their children. These countries consistently rank among the best in global education rankings, offering high-quality education, fewer standardized tests, and a focus on critical thinking and creativity. And for many American parents, the decision to leave the US is an investment in their children's future. It's not about criticizing the US educational system, but for some, it's about finding a system that better aligns with their values and provides more opportunities for their children to succeed. When you're worried about your kid's future, you do whatever it takes to make sure they have the best possible shot. And for many Americans, that means looking abroad. So, there you have it. 13 reasons why more Americans are leaving the US. Some of these reasons are uncomfortable, others are unpopular, but they reflect a reality that many people are grappling with today. From the fear of economic instability to frustrations with the education system and a sense of losing national unity, it's clear that many Americans are feeling disconnected from their country and are searching for better opportunities elsewhere. But here's the thing. Leaving the US isn't necessarily about abandoning your roots or giving up on the country you once called home. It's about finding a place where you can truly thrive, where your values align with your environment, and where you feel like you have a chance at a better future. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you agree with any of these reasons? Are you considering moving abroad, or have you already made the leap? Drop a comment below. I always love hearing your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it insightful. And as always, I'll catch you in the next video.